We're going to take a look at three putting techniques here. First, the DynAlign dynamic pre-shot alignment. Then we'll look at Matt Kuchar's arm lock style that uses a special putter. And then we'll look at Jack Nicklaus's putting technique that was one of the best pressure putting techniques of all time. The differences are going to be in the grip and how the club is stabilized through the stroke, and we'll show that the DynAlign stroke is a very stable, maybe the most stable of the three, and it can even be used left-handed and expanded for using it in trouble shots later in shots other than putting. Here's Matt Kuchar's setup with the shaft leaned forward and the butt end of the grip anchored against the inside of his forearm. Goes almost up to the elbow. And the shoulder tilt, you can see the lead shoulder is higher than the trailing shoulder, and the head is behind the ball. And notice the V formed by the eye line and the shaft angle. And we'll take a look at the other setups here. Here's Jack Nicklaus's setup. And notice a similarity between the forward shaft lean and the shoulder tilt back to front, head position behind the ball, and the V formed by the eye line and the shaft angle is very similar to the Matt Kuchar setup. Difference here is that the shaft is not anchored against the inside of the lead forearm, and you can see that there is a divergence of the angles up the shaft and then the lead forearm. Here's the DynAlign setup, and you'll notice the similar forward shaft lean and the shoulder tilt back to front, head position behind the ball, and the V formed by the eye line and the forward shaft lean is similar to the Kuchar and Nicklaus setup. Notice that the lead foot is pulled back off the line, similar to the Nicklaus setup, and this opens up the view down the line so that the player is not blocked off from seeing the path to the hole. Here's Matt's setup again, and you can see that his elbows are tucked into his body, and he explains that he needs to do this to provide stability for the stroke. Now, the anchoring of the club against his lead forearm will not prevent rotational motion in the lead arm, so that's why he needs to have that club further supported with his elbows. And now this could become a problem on the through stroke on a longer putt where the elbows are going to have to come off the body. You can see that Jack Nicklaus's elbows are not connected to his torso during the stroke, and also notice that there's a bend in the elbows in this stroke. Here's the DynAlign setup, and notice that the elbows are not connected to the torso and the arms are extended with no break at the elbow. And on the through stroke, you can see that the arms have maintained their configuration where there's no breakdown in either the lead or the trail arm at the elbow. That constant configuration of the arms through the stroke is a product of the pre-shot torquing motion that removes the slack from the arms and their joints. So there's no need to provide stability by pressing those arms up against the body. Now we're going to take a look at the hands in these three types of putting setups and how the source of motion in the hands is stabilized in the DynAlign setup but not stabilized in the Kuchar or the Nicklaus setup. Take a look at number 3 pointing to Matt Kuchar's lead hand, and you can see that his index finger is a traditional reverse overlap type putting grip. Now that grip has not been rotated counterclockwise as it is in the DynAlign grip, and that is a source of potential for motion. Since the hand has not been rotated in Matt's grip, then that hand is susceptible to turning either clockwise or counterclockwise during the stroke, and it doesn't take much to set it off. Jack Nicklaus's lead hand grip does provide some stabilization because there's a little bit of a forward press here. You'll notice that the lead thumb goes diagonally across the grip at a slight angle rather than going straight down the putter shaft. While this grip does provide some stabilization, there is still potential for motion in clockwise and counterclockwise direction of the hand, wrist, and forearm. And you can see because there is wrist hinging during this stroke, there could be unwanted rotational motion. Here's a good look at the grip of a Matt Kuchar putter as it's anchored against the inside of the forearm. And you can notice that the lead wrist has a little bit of bowing towards the target, but it is not rotated counterclockwise as it is in the DynAlign grip. So it does not provide the stability against rotational motion of this lead forearm, and it could result in the blade becoming misaligned at impact. Here's a view of the DynAlign grip where the lead hand, wrist, and forearm have been rotated counterclockwise to a soft end range, and then the wrist has also had palmar flexion or bowing and uncocking as well. You can notice how the lead thumb goes more diagonally across the grip. So the sources of motion have been stabilized in this lead hand before the club has been put into the hand. And you'll also notice that this grip results in the lead index finger being underneath the grip. It's more like an underlap grip rather than a reverse overlap grip. Now here's a picture of the DynAlign putting stroke with colored lines that represented the shaft positions throughout the stroke. And this was done on a video and not posed. The blue line is the address and the impact position. They were virtually identical. And the shaft is a standard length putter shaft, but if it were extended, it would extend right to the position below the elbow. And you can see where the lines converge. It forms a fulcrum point that is consistent throughout the stroke. Also on the through stroke, the shaft is supported by the trail arm, and that's the arm that is applying force to the shaft. Here's a picture of my left-handed putting using DynAlign, and you can see that it's a mirror image of the right-handed putting. And once again, this was done with film and not posed. And the blue line represents the address and the impact position. And I'm not coordinated left-handed. I don't do any physical activities left-handed. So the DynAlign setup really allows me to have a pretty good putting stroke left-handed, although I don't have the feel in my trail hand for rolling or tossing balls as I do in right-handed. But this does come in handy when you want to hit a shot left-handed. Sometimes you're up against a wall or a tree or something and you need to flip the club over. So if you know how to use DynAlign left-handed in putting, you'll be able to flip that club over and get a good alignment and a good shot as a lefty.